Well, thanks a lot for staying with us here on Sunrise Live on E! On this Friday morning on this issue of the week discussion. Now, on Wednesday, what we had was the Minister of Finance, Kraamwinkel, which presented his 2017 budget speech. High earners were hit with a tax increase of 45%, and the fuel levy also went up with 30 cents per litre, 9% per litre, or 9 cent per litre for the road accident fund. So to talk more about exactly how this will affect our pockets are on the line here. We're joined in studio by Andrew Wellsted, who's the head of a tax at Norton Fulbright, and also Kraamwinkel, who's a partner at PriceWaterhouseCoopers. Now, remember, to be part of our conversation this morning, you simply give us a call on 011 447 1620 or leave your comments on our Facebook and Twitter pages. If you want to know how your pocket is going to be affected for this financial year, be sure to engage with us this morning. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Morning, Fred.
And perhaps, Andrew, we should start off with you. Many analysts, in fact, I was reading an article that they were saying that the Minister of Finance budget speech this time was almost like a Robin Hood kind of budget speech. Take from the rich, give to the poor. What did you make of some of those ways of making money and recouping some of the finances?
I think that's not a bad description of it. There was no doubt before the budget that there had to be some tax increase.
Yeah.
The deficit's just getting too much. We're just spending too much and we're not collecting enough. I think what did surprise a lot of people, myself included, was the extent of the increase at the top end. 4% on a 41% tax rate, it's nearly 10% up. And that is a significant increase. Dividends tax was also increased by nearly 30%, so from 15 to 20%.
Yeah.
So the jumps that were made were significant, and I think that was a little unprecedented.
Yeah, you're saying that they're unprecedented. What's your view on it? I mean, from Andrew's perspective, that perhaps it was a bit too much at this stage, especially for those who are getting their pockets hit and what will be the top end.
Yeah, see, listen, it is a lot.
Yeah.
And to take the Robin Hood analogy one step further, there was taken from the rich and given to the poor, but also taken from the poor. The 30% or the 30 cent increase in the fuel levy is significant, and it's going to hit those with the lowest levels of income relying on public transport. So this is a budget that I think we can say the minister didn't want to increase taxes, but his sentiment over the last number of years is, guys, we got to do what we need to do.
Yeah, and doing what we need to do. I mean, obviously, when people are looking at the overall, and I've heard this, especially when it comes to the analysis of the budget speech, time and time again, you'll hear people saying, that's great when you're going to be taxing me 45% of my income. However, I'm not even certain that that money is going to be used effectively, and that money is not going to be misspent by various government departments, and money is going to be returned unused. So then how do we then almost counter that analogy? I mean, even the minister was speaking about it, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. In the budget speech itself, it mentioned that at some point taxpayers are going to start asking questions.
Yeah.
Never mind the 45%. You've got capital gains tax, value-added tax when you transact, tolls when you drive on the roads, plastic bag tax. So there's a proliferation of taxes as well. We mustn't believe that this is the first time there's been a big tax increase. There are a number of new taxes that have been added. They mentioned in the budget acid mine tax, gambling tax, carbon tax, sugar tax. So we are in my view, we're a heavily taxed society.
Are we still about 14th in the world in terms of being the most taxed country?
I'm always careful of statistics these days since the American election, but I've seen stats that say we're starting to move up there. And if you take the total tax that is imposed, it is significant. We pay a lot of taxes, South Africans. And you certainly hear, you can go onto the social fora, you can listen to the debates in Parliament. People are really starting to ask, do we get bang for our buck?
Yeah, and I mean, looking at accountability aspect of it, and I know we're going to unpack in terms of exactly the 45%, what does it mean? And then I know that also low-income earners as well, they've got a little bit of a break and a relief, or they're calling it a relief for low-income earners as well. However, when we're looking at the issue of accountability, is it about 50% of the GDP of South Africa is actually the deficit that we have is actually equivalent to 50% of South Africa's GDP. That to me says that there's a serious problem with government spending and overspending.
Absolutely. So the same question gets asked year after year is, what are we getting for our tax?
Yeah.
And are we focusing enough simply on eliminating wasteful expenditure? If you look at our municipalities throughout the country, the vast majority are still not even passing and getting unqualified audits. So there's a lot of work to be done. The minister
But see, but they got the lower end of the budget speech, right? So we got the government, the departments that got about 45%, and then it got deliberated. I think it was the provinces that got about 43% or so, and then when it comes to the local governments, which is talking about municipalities now, they got about what? About 9% of the chunk or so.
What we shouldn't lose sight of is all that is true, but the minister, or in the budget, hidden in some of the columns, is big deficits for next year and the year thereafter as well. We're looking for another 15 billion and another 16 billion the year thereafter. So the question is, guys, can we get more from the same pot, or shouldn't our focus be twofold, limiting our expenditure and growing the tax base, and that we can only do if we have a growing economy?
It's so interesting that you mention it from an analytical perspective, because I think I was listening to the minister saying that unfortunately economists appear to be a little bit philosophical in terms of their views and the way in which you can rectify the measures in itself. And obviously that speaks to issues around, and we hear you about maybe cutting down on the spending, looking at that public sector wage bill, which is still a bone of contention specifically, but how exactly are we able to get money elsewhere instead of those pockets that people need to live?
I think there are a number of things. I think on the spend side of the budget, the minister did very well, and it's something that he's done for all the years that he has been minister. He hasn't committed to extravagant or ambitious projects that we can't afford. He's spoken about a few projects that he would like to look at and that the government is looking at. But if you go and read, there's no concrete, we're going to spend this much on this. It was really a bit of a waiting game, which has always been what he's done when he doesn't have cash. But to answer your question about how are we going to bridge it, we have to start growing the economy. Now, it is difficult. We're in a global environment where there's a slowdown internationally, and that makes things difficult. But we have to start broadening the tax base. At some point, for as long as I've been talking about tax, the tax bases are roughly the same in terms of headcount. That has to change. Otherwise, you're simply going to get to a point where people are going to start making alternative plans because they're going to say, I no longer buy into this
offshore accounts, basically, and we're going to get into issues around offshore accounts, Andrew. When we're looking at some of the revenue, and this is a problem for me, and a personal problem, because when we have 95% of the wealth in the hands of 10% of South Africa's population, that to me says that with our 23 years or so of democracy, we've really done the economic transformation aspect, and the agenda of economic transformation is happening at a slow pace. What else is government supposed to do, really?
Yeah, so the issue there is, I don't think so much that we have rich people. We need rich people. They make the economy and help the economy grow. The point is that we have still too many poor people. And the reality is, if we put this in an analogy, if you go 10 people to have dinner, 8 of those people will only pay for half their dinner, and 2 will pay for 3 times what they eat. It's just not a sustainable way. Whether it be in tax collection, and our tax collections reflect that. That's why we've been taken, the top tier has been taxed more.
Yeah.
But the bottom guys got to be empowered so that they get into those brackets and we actually grow the cake, not divide the 95 between.
Let's speak about growing the cake, because I mean, obviously there was that issue around the tax relief for low-income earners. I think now it's on about 70. So if you earn about 75,750 now, so it's been increased with the number, then you get a little bit of a tax sort of relief. Do you think that was effective in your analogy?
Well, back to Andrew's point earlier, if you look at only corporate tax and individual tax, yes. But what we need to do is look at the complete basket of revenue collections. And something like a fuel levy increase is probably going to be disproportionately negative for that low-income earner. So yes, he perhaps pays slightly less or not as much more.
But then now you hit him with the fuel levy.
Exactly.
And then now you're hitting him with the 2% increase of electricity.
Yeah.
Tariffs hike, 2%.
And all those things flow into different prices. You know, if fuel becomes expensive, then many other things have got a cascading effect.
And then on the other side, he must stop drinking and he must stop smoking because we've got the sin tax that is increasing, right, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is taxpayers in the base, and let's accept that the tax base hasn't grown in the last 10 years significantly, are earning less every single year. The economy is not growing. We're not getting double-digit increases like we were 10, 15 years ago, and taxes are increasing and proliferating. And I make the point again, you can call a tax by a different name, it still hits you in the pocket. So, you know, something has to be done. As Cor says, grow the cake, start expanding the cake, start bringing other people into the tax base. That's really the way. You can't grow the economy through government expenditure.
Or through 100,000 of people that are going to be paying for that 45% increase in tax because they earn about 1.5 million and more. Still in conversation in studio with Andrew Wellsted, who's the head of tax from Norton Fulbright, as well as Kraamwinkel, who's a partner at PriceWaterhouseCoopers. Now, when we're looking at just the conversation we were having just before the break, speaking about how we've got 100,000 people in this country that are going to be paying within the 45% tax bracket, and simply we're squeezing them a little bit way too tight. So now the question to you, Andrew, is how then do we start widening that cake and so that more people can actually come in and actually contribute to tax, because it is a lot for 100,000 people?
Yeah, I mean, the simple answer is we need to start growing the economy. We need to start getting people involved who come in at the lower levels and add to the economy, become registered as taxpayers. Now that's very difficult to do in an economic.
In other words, we need to create jobs so that
we
people can
We
add.
need to create jobs.
Yeah.
We need to create jobs. We need to get people earning money, adding to the fisc, paying VAT, etc., etc. If we can start expanding the tax base or the workforce, if I can use a different term, a lot will change. Now, it's difficult in the economic climate that we find ourselves in. We're around 1% growth, depending on who you believe. It can fall either side. But we haven't done enough. I think that's accepted across the spectrum. We haven't done enough in the last 20 years to try and make a more inclusive economy, and that really needs to be the focus.
Speaking about more inclusive economy, is that perhaps where small businesses now play a large role? I mean, I was seeing actually the Minister of Finance speaking significantly about how the barriers to entry in terms of running small businesses and the operation costs involved need to actually come down significantly. Speaking to the Department of Trade and Industry at the back of that, obviously that 3 billion rand that has been allocated to the Department of Small Business.
Absolutely. So with the growth in both the informal sector, which is by all accounts bigger than what was estimated, and the same with the small businesses, the moment the business starts formalizing, it starts to be a contributor to tax. But at the moment, barriers to entry, just a simple thing like the complexity of our tax laws, are just so difficult that it acts as an inhibitor for these businesses to start formalizing and start formally contributing to the economy. So much work to be done there.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus, it's just like 100,000 people are wealthy in this country. That's a fact. Or they're earning, let's not say they're wealthy, they're earning within the 1.5 million and upward bracket. Does that not give way for more offshore accounts to actually manifest in the South African context, because people don't want to let go of their money?
I think it's important, as a starting point, it's not illegal to have an offshore account.
Yeah.
It's perfectly legal, it can be done. There are many people, though, who have offshore accounts that are not disclosed. That's the issue there. But your point was slightly different. Are we not encouraging that sort of behavior where people stop and look into and start saying, well, maybe I should take my wealth offshore? And the answer is yes, that is a risk. If I can invest my...
Is it more of a risk now, given the higher tax bracket?
Well, one of the things that limits your return is tax. So now, if I say I can deploy, and by the way, this is true for international investors as well. I often get the question from an international investor, what is the tax rate? What are the regulatory hurdles that I have to go through? And if I give them a very long reply, that's a disincentive to invest. Same for South Africans. Not only the income tax rate went up, the capital gains tax rate increased because it moves on the back of the income tax rate, and the dividends tax rate. So now, the question is it competitive for me to invest my money in South Africa? Why shouldn't I invest it offshore? I can do so legally. If I can get a better return, I will.
Well, guys, you definitely are painting quite a real picture in terms of the year ahead that we have, or the financial year ahead that we have for all South Africans. And perhaps really the question is, how do we create more jobs, formalizing at that informal sector, small businesses being given more attention, and the barriers to entry, especially when it comes to operation, must actually fall at this moment. So thanks so much to the both of you for joining us for the conversation.
Thank you.
Of course, speaking about the